Hi everyone, just responding to some of the emails I've had this week about how to plan assessment questions. I'm just going to do a little task with you to give you some advice on ways I'd approach it. Sorry it's not as polished as my normal ones. I'm just going to do it with my camera on my phone, so bear with me. So I'm going to look particularly at the analysis questions as they seem to be causing people a little bit of stress. I'm just going to look at this example Macbeth question here. How does Shakespeare present ideas about power in the play Macbeth? The first thing I'd say about planning any assessment question is that it's actually quite a personal process. Some planning techniques work for some students and some don't work for others. So my main advice to you would be to try as many different ones as you can and think about which ones work for you and which ones don't and how you approach your work. For me personally, my first step for planning any question would be to have a little look at key parts of the question and think about what I need to focus on before I even start writing or planning. So the first thing I'm going to zoom in on in the question is this idea here of power. Obviously, my entire answer needs to be focused on that. I also need to think here about the writer's intentions a lot, because it is talking about Shakespeare and ideas. So I do need to think about effects that he's trying to create with certain quotations, and also any ideas that I think he might be raising socially. And one question I think a lot of students don't really think about is this how question. How word, because that is a reminder to me that I need to analyse. So we're not in language. We're in a literature paper, obviously, but we still need to think about some of those skills that we've been looking at in the language paper and bringing them in. So we need to make sure that we're analysing those quotations and we're thinking about how they support our answer. How you go from here really is where it becomes a little bit more personal. So for me, I like to create, it's kind of a merge between a mind map and a list really of ideas first. So the first idea that I think I would have that would spring to mind for me is that I think he uses Macbeth, or the character of Macbeth, to explore ideas about the negative impact of dictatorship. So I'm going to write that down. By dictatorship, if we're unsure, that is a style of leadership where one person rules and people don't have that democratic right, they don't have a voice to that leadership. And the quotation that I think I would use to show the impact it has, particularly if I'm going for a higher grade, because I'm trying to think of less obvious quotations, might be when Ross says about Scotland, it cannot be called our mother but our grave. Sorry if it's a bit wobbly, I'm trying to multitask. Okay. This is actually said whilst Macbeth is leading Scotland. So this really shows that negative impact. I would particularly then, I'm going to start to think about my analysis. So if it were me personally, I think I would zoom in on this word mother and this word, the contrast with the word grave. I'm going to make a note here that this has connotations of, first of all, birth, which leads to potential, doesn't it? Scotland has that potential, but most importantly, of nurturing and loving. And I think that suggests ideas that actually maybe Shakespeare is considering to his audience that the writer feels that positive leadership nurtures a country, that it comes out of love and care for that nation, and that it makes decisions that are within its best interests. But here it's contrasted, the beginning of life, with this word here, grave, which obviously has connotations of death. Will I fit it in? And I would go on to expand this by thinking about the fact that that implies that the way that Macbeth is leading, the control, the violence, the fear, is having a negative impact on the country, and it's not allowing people within it the happiness and the potential that that country could have, and that therefore Shakespeare's thinking about the negative impact that bad leadership has on a nation. If I was going to link that to context, I might think about the fact that it's coming out of a time that's been fairly unstable. They've had a change of monarch. We know that there was an uprising against James I, and quite a few people were not sure about him taking over at the beginning. And I could make that link, and I could push myself to think about how Shakespeare may feel about that situation. I think I would now, in my mind, go on to contrast that with positive leadership. Lots of people, when power comes up, just thinks about Macbeth. You don't have to do that. Remember, you have lots of leaders in that play. Okay, you've got Duncan, you've got Malcolm, you've got Lady Macbeth leading lots of things, you've got Macduff to a certain extent using power and leading. So try and think outside the box, don't always pick the obvious. So I would contrast this. My second point would be to contrast with Malcolm's positive leadership. I know many people don't like Malcolm, but I think that we are meant to favour this style of leadership over this one. And the quotation I would use for this would be when he says at the end of the play, when he takes over, "We will perform with measure, time and place." By that he means that he's going to make rational decisions that are made at the right time and that he considers the impact of his choices. So instantly we see a difference. So I'm going to zoom in here on this use of triadic structure. You may call that rule of three or a triplet, and I would talk about the fact that it implies that he will be rational, and put his country first. It sounds like he's going to make decisions that are within their interest. And if I was going to develop that, I could also look at that inclusive pronoun here, we. And I would talk about it being an inclusive attitude. To his people. He seems to care and value about them. He's going to include them in their decision. He's going to put them first. I would go on to my map, maybe one or two more ideas, and I'm going to challenge you to do that. I did take a little bit of fair criticism that some of my videos don't analyse quotation. There is a point to that. I am trying to enable you to have the confidence to do it yourself. So I would say pause the video now and go on to list two more ideas that you could talk about that in that essay, and two more quotations. After you've got all of your ideas, that's when I then go on to think about the structure of my essay. So sometimes at the beginning of the exam, you might have put loads on the page, and then you might decide that actually only a couple of those things are relevant. So some of them might not go in. There might be an idea that you don't think you have enough to say about. I'd say leave that out. And then once you've got the bits you think, yes, I'm going to write about these, think about the structure of your essay. And that came out of the exam reports a lot last year, that people weren't thinking about the structure of their writing. And by that I mean, in what order would you talk about those ideas? What order would be the most fluid? How would it flow? Which ideas connect? Which ideas contrast? So naturally, I would begin with this one, and then I could go straight into this one with a contrast if I wanted to. And then I would look at my other ideas and think about where they should go. If I had an idea up here that I think would be a better starting point than that, then obviously I would put it before this one. So once you've got your ideas and your quotes and your analysis notes, think about the order you want to write in. Once you've got all of this, you're ready to write. You're ready to do your PEA chains. So that would be the next starting point. But please don't forget how important this is. It's really crucial to plan your answer. It gives you a more focused answer. The answer is more relevant. It's usually more detailed, and that first part of the exam, there is a lot of pressure. It's a lot of panic when you open it up, that you just want to get going. You're conscious of time limits. But really, I always say to my classes, that first part of the exam, part of the test is who can hold their nerve the best, who can take time to think about their answer, plan their response, and be ready to do that without panicking about just beginning to write. And that's part of the test. So really, really take time to plan your answer, and try, as part of your revision, planning lots of different questions in different ways and find the one that works best for you. I hope that's been of use. Please keep messaging me if you need me to focus on anything, and I will pop a video up on the channel. Okay, bye everybody.